Welcome to Empowered Heart to Heart, where you'll hear messages of hope, conversations that heal, and interviews that empower. Well, hey, this is Rhonda Simmons, the founder and CEO of the Simmons Empowerment Foundation. And like I say, every single podcast episode, I am excited. I tell you, I have met some of the best people this side of heaven that I have interviewed on our podcast. And today is no exception. And I'm so looking forward to it. By the way, welcome to Empowered Heart to Heart. Just in case you missed my little intro, welcome. If you're watching the video on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, please make sure on Facebook that you like, comment, and share this video. Let somebody know that it's happening right now. And so also on YouTube, subscribe so that you can be notified every time I upload a new episode. Because as you know, our podcast publishes weekly. And so we don't want you to miss a single episode. And I'm so glad that we are able to bring information to you that you need. As we like to say on our Empowered Heart to Heart, we bring messages of hope. We have conversations that heal and interviews that empower. And I promise you, today you are going to be all of those things. You're going to be filled with hope. You may find some healing in the conversation that we're about to have, and you will definitely find empowerment. Today, I'm going to be talking with uh, Richard Villasana, and I apologize if I did not say that right. I just feel like I said it wrong. And so when I bring him in, he's going to correct me. But I tell you, he is a great man. He has accomplished great things. Let me just interject here right before I bring him. Since we're living anyway, we might as well make an impact on those around us. What is it that you could do to help someone else? Well, Richard has definitely made full proof of his life. He is a proud Navy veteran. He is a leading international authority on immigration issues and foster families. He's been featured on CNN International. I told you, I got one of the best people this side of heaven to interview today. He's been interviewed on Univision, ABC TV. He's been in US magazines and newspapers. He's been interviewed on radio, television, and podcasts, and by EFE, the world's largest Spanish media company. And I'm just going to let him tell you the rest of his story. And so I'm going to introduce to you, I'll call him Mr. Richard. Hello, Richard. How are you?
I'm doing so good, Rhonda. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Please, for the sake of my own salvation here and for our audience, will you please tell us how to correctly say your last name?
Villasana.
Villasana.
Yep, there you
Beautiful,
go.
beautiful.
Perfect.
Okay, good. I'm glad I got it right now. So, Richard, I'm so glad to have you on our show today. I know you are a super busy man. Your bio speaks volumes, and I would love for you to just share with us some more about yourself and your accomplishments, and especially about your work in the foster care industry.
Well, thank you so much. And I got into this industry kind of, I was pulled into it. I listened to a gentleman talk one time, and he said, some of us know exactly what we want to do. We know we're going to be attorneys or accountants. And there's some of us who don't really have an idea what we're going to do in life. And then somehow it kind of pulls us into it. And that's what happened with me. I was working with a mentor. He was an incredible person who had been all throughout Latin America working on behalf of foreign governments, the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, doing multi-million dollar contracts for Fortune 500 companies. And I was so fortunate that I was able to get this person's attention and have him be my mentor and teach me how to engage with government agencies and companies all throughout Latin America. And because of that, he also showed me that I had a skill, I had a gift for finding people. And I had done this for our own business because we were in business together. But I have to tell this story because this really sets the framework for what I did in foster care. So one day we're working together and he comes to my desk and he gives me a piece of paper and he says, I want you to find this guy. His name was Barry Johnson, I think. And I said, okay, where is this guy? He says he's in Washington, D.C. He works for the Department of Commerce. Now, this is not a small little agency. This is huge. And he said, look, do what you can. See if you can find this person's phone number and let me know at the end of the day. So later that day, I came to his desk. I dropped a piece of paper off. He looks at it. And he says, what's this? I said, well, that's the phone number. Phone number for who? I'm like, for Barry Johnson. And he looks at his watch. He says, I asked for this 5 minutes ago. I thought he was upset because I'd taken so long. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, this is pre Google. So there was no database to go to, there was no search engine. And he's like, you did this in 5 minutes. I said, well, yeah. He said, nobody does this in 5 minutes. I said, well, I do. And I'm thinking, job done. I'm ready to get back to my desk. And I'm moving that way. And he says, you're not leaving till you tell me what you did. Okay, so I come back and I tell him that I called, Mary Ann at the Economic Development Center, and she got me to John, who was in DC, and John got me over to Suzanne, and Suzanne gave me the phone number. And for me, it's like, there's no mystery here. This is what I did. Job done. Got work to do. And he says, nobody does this. And I said, I do all the time. And he says, you're not listening to me. And that was really important. That was a life lesson right there because I respected him. I admired him. And I knew when he said that, because we'd been together long enough, that I was missing a life lesson. So I come back to the desk, I kind of chill. I'm like, okay, what am I not getting? He says, my background, all the major corporations I've worked for. Yes. All the dignitaries I've met. Yes. He said, so when I tell you that I have never met someone who can do what you just did, that means something. I said, but I do it all the time. He said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And that was such a critically important lesson because every one of us has this, some people call it superpower or that gift, that thing we
Yeah.
do so well that everyone goes, oh my God, I can't. How did you do that? How did you take two sticks and, create a gazebo? How did you do this?
Yeah.
And we blow it off because it's something we do so naturally. We just discount it as if, it's not a skill. It's not worth anything. It's fun, but, and he made me realize that it was a gift. It was a skill. And I was in a position to listen to that. And unfortunately, that happens with a lot of our young people, especially when they're in foster care. They don't get told, they don't make the connections with adults or with others who are able to give them that advice. Someone they respect and they trust who can say, you know what, you're really good at this. You should really focus on this. Simone Biles was so lucky because she had someone who pointed that out to her and said, you can do this. You can be this person. And look where she is.
Wow.
The most medaled gymnast, I think, Olympian ever.
Mhm.
But she had someone who believed in her and told her, you can do this and pointed it out to her. And that's something that's lacking that all of us, you said at the very beginning, how can we help someone? Right there, we could go out today, tomorrow, and look at someone and see what it is that they do so well and tell them,
Yeah.
especially if there's that connection already. So they'll listen to us. And then we could take it a step further and encourage it and help motivate them to develop whatever that is because they may have the gift, but they may not have that initiative to go through the steps because just having a gift does not mean that it's super easy. You never have to study, you never have to research. I do all the time. I am constantly in learning mode,
Right.
but that may be a skill other, young people don't have that
Mhm.
we as adults, we can encourage that and Give that to someone and change their life forever.
Mhm.
And again, because I had that gift pointed out, I started doing this with other people, finding relatives, and then somehow the word got out and foster care agencies started calling me up and saying, "Can you help us? This child is in care. We need to find his mother." And they live in Latin America. We don't read Spanish. We don't understand Spanish. We don't know what the documents are called. Can you help? And that was the beginning of what I've
Wow.
now been doing for 3 decades.
That is amazing. That is amazing. There is no greater fulfillment than knowing that you are walking in your God given purpose in life, that this is what you were created to do. And I wish you could really see the joy on your face right now as you talk about what you do. It is so evident, that this isn't a job for you. It's your life's work. It's your calling and your passion. And I definitely appreciate that. And um, so in the foster care industry, um, you do you focus specifically on children in Latin America, or are you just open to anyone who needs your help?
It really is focused on Latin America just simply because that's my skill level. I have worked in every country that is Spanish speaking in Latin America. And we add Brazil, that is Portuguese, but we add
Mhm,
that to the mix for Latin America.
mhm,
And that's where I spent all my years doing international business. Some of my clients were Cisco Systems, AT&T. I got called for research. I got called to market their products. Cisco System was actually amazing. We had a product that was so new, when we took it to the engineers for them to approve it, like we have Underwriters Laboratory here in the US, where they say, "Yes, we have tested this. It's safe." They were looking at like, "Okay, this is new technology. Yes. Never before hit the market. How are we supposed to test this thing?" And we're like, "Good question." And they basically said, "Okay, it passed, it passed, it passed." I mean, you've got to think about it. You've got something never before seen. How are you going to test to make sure it works against based on what? So
mhm.
I've been in those situations, so unique and unusual. And so because of that background, that's where my forte is. Spanish is my fourth language. I've traveled. I've lived in Latin America. I lived in Mexico for 10 years. I was a professor at one of the universities. I mean, I went rustic, native. I did not have someone paying my bills. I paid the water bill. I knew where to go to put the money in and to get the receipt and what to do when the water ran out. Been there, done all of those things. And so, but
Wow.
here's the catch. In the work that I do,
Mhm.
we have found relatives who lived in the United States in the vast majority of our cases. Can I share a quick story with you?
Absolutely.
So we had three girls, 4, 8, and 10. And that's very young. And kids at that age usually can't give a lot of details about family members. They may know them as Auntie Beth or Uncle John, but that's about it. They don't know street addresses. They might know a phone number, but let's face it, now with our phones the way they are, who remembers a phone number? So
Right.
they had these three girls, and they did tell the caseworker that they had two aunts living in Chicago. They could not find anything on these two aunts, but they had information on some of their relatives who were living in Mexico. So they said, "Look, can you help us find those relatives in Mexico?" Sure. 3 weeks later, we found the relatives, gave the contact information to the caseworker. So it's a Saturday. She's got her translator with her. She's calling down to Mexico and she gets one of the uncles. And she's talking for a few minutes and says, "By the way, do you know anything about two aunts living in Chicago?" He says, "Wait a minute." A few seconds later, a woman comes on the line and the caseworker introduces herself and does the same thing and says, "Do you know anything about two aunts living in Chicago?" She says, "Well, of course I do. I'm one of them." They were in the living room having coffee.
Oh my goodness.
They had
Wow.
flown down that week and were spending the week with the family, and they'd
Mhm.
just gotten back from lunch and were having coffee in the living room
Wow.
when she called. That's exactly how she reacted. 17 years, I've never had anything like this ever happen.
Wow.
And guess what? They're like, "Of course we'll take the girls in. We'll be back on Tuesday." And boom, where are the girls living now? In Chicago with their aunts. That happens
Wow.
all the time.
Oh,
So
that's fantastic.
no, it is because these girls didn't have to leave their country, probably didn't speak Spanish,
Mhm.
didn't have to leave a place that they were familiar with. They were able to find new relatives and to go stay with them and get out of foster care because
Yes.
it is not long-term care. That's
No.
something people forget. People think of foster care and yes, many kids do get out within 2 years, but a lot of kids, thousands of kids, stay in for years. Some
Yes.
stay in their whole entire childhood until they
Yes.
hit 18 years old. That's all they've ever known, and that's a terrible parent. Government just is not created to be a loving, caring, guiding parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, eh, having gone through some training, of course, not at the level that you have, but having gone through foster parent training, everyone wants the babies and the little ones and the cute, cuddly ones. And so, like you said, there are so many older children in foster care, and they know that that's the thing that hurts my heart is they know that they're not anyone's choice and they're acting out, because they know people are not choosing them because of, something that they can't control, their age, and it just hurts my heart to just see that. I know in our state, in Texas, they are overrun with foster care children to the point where the state is reaching out to the public to see if they're willing to rent houses. If the state can rent houses from, just everyday citizens to put these children in because they have them staying in hotels or sleeping overnight in the offices because they don't have anywhere to place them because people don't want to deal with the older children, and that's where my heart is. And so, what are some of the worst problems that you've seen in the foster care system?
Well, you really just touched on it, and that is that we went through COVID. And COVID did a lot of things to the foster care system. Before COVID, grandparents were a great resource. Grandparents have stepped up and they are definitely unacknowledged heroes. They step
Yes,
in and take in their grandchildren, they care for them.
mhm,
Some do this formally, some adopt their children. That's what happened
yes,
with Simone Biles. Her
hmm,
grandparents came in and took her out of foster care, and then ultimately they adopted her. And
wow,
so it's family, and
mhm.
everyone loves their grandparents.
Yeah, I know, right?
And so it's like the best of both worlds. So
Yes,
but because of COVID, many of them died. Many of them now have medical issues that prevent them from being that caregiver to their grandchild. So they're out of the picture. And this happened to thousands and thousands of families. Then you had those who, they passed away. You had parents who passed away. You had people who were foster parents who they are dealing with grief or loss or they're at risk or a child is at risk so they are have pulled back. So across the country, this is one of the things I write about in my book is because people didn't hear a lot about this. The reality is these people had to pull back and that's why we have a foster care crisis right now because we have lost all these foster parents and potential adoptive parents and now we're having to rebuild, and every state is suffering from this lack of having foster parents to give a child a real home. So, yes, we do have them sleeping in hotel rooms, sleeping in offices, sleeping in the break room. Can you
yes,
imagine a child 5 years old being at an office all day? And
No.
even if they're not, having to come back to the office and sleep on the floor or on a cot, I mean, no matter how nice the cot is, it's still a cot and it's still in an office.
Right.
No one's reading them bedtime stories. No one's helping them with their homework. No one's giving them that chocolate chip cookie. And this is not to say that these people who work in these offices, you know, are heartless. They're not.
Mm.
I'm sure they are stressed because they have to watch this and don't have the ability to make change. And you asked, what can we? That's the horror story right there. That's the terrible side of the foster care right now. Is this crisis? But there's hope,
Yes.
and the
Believe
hope
that.
is the family finding that I do. Not just me. This is across the country. There are
So sorry.
agencies. Oh, that was so pretty. There are agencies that can do family finding, and when they do, that gets them connected to the aunt, uncle, grandparent. And by doing that, they do get them out of the system. They move from foster care to kinship care.
Mhm.
And that makes a huge difference. Again, I keep talking about Simone Biles, but she is a fierce advocate of foster care. She does not back away from it like a lot of celebrities have. They don't want to talk about their foster care years. But
Hmm.
Simone Biles embraces it. She's fierce about it. She advocates for it. And
Yeah.
that's why I talk about her so much because she is my hero.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
and at such a young age. And so she realizes what can happen to a child if they have their family found. And family finding is so simple. You make a list of all the relatives, you locate all those relatives, and then you contact all those relatives. And then most of the time, someone, and is what happens with us constantly, will say, yes, I'll take in little Maria. I'll
Mhm.
take in, Marco. Sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the next thing you know, the child's out of foster care. They're in a loving family setting. They're not moving twice a year.
Mhm.
They're not at risk of massive depression because they're being passed from home to home thinking, what did I
Mhm.
do wrong? Why didn't they love me enough to fight for me? Why didn't
Yes.
they speak up? Why didn't they want me? Because
Mhm.
no one sits them down and says, look, that's not the way the system works. It's not you. But they don't get told this. So they keep going through life for years thinking, it's me. I must really be messing up. And this impacts these kids so badly. But family finding, it's quick, it's inexpensive. 'Cause listen, there are some kids right now, agencies are paying out $10,000 a month. And I don't think anyone thinks that we're getting $10,000 a month worth of benefit for these children.
No. Yeah.
No, I actually referenced that. You can go to Harvard to get room and board for less than 70,000. Harvard for $70,000. I don't think we're getting our money's worth when it comes to foster care.
No. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, Richard, you mentioned your book. It's called Do No Harm. And somewhere around the video will be the link for people to purchase your book because they need to get it, they need to read it. We'll also put it in the description for YouTube. But tell us some more about your book, Do No Harm, and how it shines a light on the foster care issue and crisis in this country.
Well, thank you for asking about that. It was definitely a labor of love. It does focus on the children who were separated coming across the U.S. Mexico border back in 2017 through 2021. These children were separated. That was a policy that the U.S. government had in place at that time. And they were unprepared for one, separating children. That's why there was so much in the media about where these children were, how they were being treated. That's a whole nother conversation. But let's just say for many children, it was not good at all. And they also did not have in place a way to locate their parents. And that was part of the lawsuit was that in the commentary, and that again is in the book, one of the judges said, you can track watches, pens, money, clothing, all these articles, but you don't have a process to find children. He was
Wow.
just blown away. He's like, "How do you do this? How do you track inanimate objects, but you
Mhm.
didn't have anything in place so we could get a child back to their parent?"
Right.
And
Right.
so for 2 years, I have been working some of the worst cold cases that the federal government had in finding people. I'll share this one with you. This is an example, hypothetical, but let's say we had the name of a parent, one other identifying information, and we would get the name of the country. So that would be like someone saying, I want you to find Rhonda and she lives in the United States. Good
Wow.
luck.
Wow.
Now we closed that case, of course,
Yes.
and you knew that was coming.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we have lots of stories of these success stories in the book.
Mhm.
And from the immigrant children, though, a lot of those kids, because they're going into poverty level homes, because they are non-citizens, they aren't able to work legally, so anything can happen to them because of finances, the stresses that poverty puts on people mentally, economically, emotionally, that can impact their parents. There can be abuse. And guess what? Those children are now starting to end up in foster care. So we've got these thousands of kids coming into foster care, a foster care system, as we talked about a moment ago, that lost thousands and thousands of grandparents, lost thousands of foster parents. It's not the safety net people are trying to purport it to be. It's not at all. It's not a sponge that can soak up the ocean. It's just not possible. And now we
Right.
have these immigrant kids coming in, and the laws that apply for them to go look for their parents kick in, and these agencies don't know what to do, and they don't know how to go look for them. And we have our own US born children who are going into the foster care system,
Mhm.
and we're hearing more about abuse. And so we've got all these kids coming in, but you know what? We need to think about the hope here,
Yes.
family finding, and the people who have transitional programs for when the kids do stay in too long and need that time frame from 18 to 21 to 24 to get their feet underneath them and to get their balance and to be able to cope with the real world on
Yes.
their own. Those programs are out there. There are states right now letting them go to college for free. That's great. It's
Yes.
not one solution does all. This is a group effort. It's family
Absolutely.
finding, it's foster
Absolutely.
parents, adoptive parents, it's transitional programs, it's good budgets for the government. So happy to see that in California, they put more money back into the budget cuts they were going to make because you
Mhm.
have to. That's money well spent. That's not
Yes.
fluff.
Right.
And that is
Right.
definitely one of the areas where we can improve on. You said at the very beginning, what can we do to help? Write our politicians, let them know children need to come first. This is not a political football. This is a child. Take care of them.
Yes.
Let them have
Yes.
the resources to have a safe home. Let the agencies have the resources so they can have someone do the work, find their relatives, contact the relatives,
Mhm.
engage with them, and get that child out of foster care. Guess what? At $10,000 a month, now that's a high, but still, let's say it's 5,000. That's a savings. Trust me, this
Yes.
is not a losing activity. This is a winning activity for everyone, children, families, government, society. It works for everybody. And that's what the book
Absolutely.
is about. It talks about this, it hits the hard, dark stuff, but it goes into hope with stories
Yes.
of hope, like those three girls. It's in the book. Other stories just like that. Children who now have a completely better, brighter life because someone found their family.
Yes, yes. I am so thrilled about the work that you do and have been doing for the past 30 years. It is awesome, beyond awesome. The need is great. And like you said, um, any investment into our children is a win-win, just all the way around. The, I'm not going to shock you and start singing the whole "I believe our children are the future" song, but it is true. It is true. And so the investments that we can make of our time, our resources, our energy, our expertise. just have exponential rewards. And I really appreciate what you're doing. So, on an everyday average citizen level, what can we do to help alleviate this crisis?
There are lots of things. And again, these are things in the book, but let me share a few quick, easy ones for someone who is super busy. They could go to Facebook. They could like this post. They could share this. They could let other people hear about this because knowing about something and getting interested is job one. If you're not interested, nothing happens. You've got to be motivated. You can't get motivated if you don't know what's going on. And so that's number one. They could come to our Facebook page. They could like our posts. They could share them. Second thing, they could do fundraisers, especially on Facebook. They're super easy, take less than 2 minutes. Let people donate. We're a nonprofit, so the more we can do only happens with the more that comes in. It's just that simple. Dollars do talk. And if we have more, then we can do more. We can help more children. People could spend time. If they really want to get more invested, they could become a foster parent. They could become a respite foster parent. That means someone who only helps for a short period of time, a couple of days, just to give someone that break because they've been doing this for months and months and they just want that evening off for themselves or to get away for a weekend just to be with their spouse or with their significant other, whoever, just to have a mental break away from the kids.
Mhm.
That's an opportunity right there. People could adopt. That's out there. But again, supporting nonprofits, any nonprofits, and they could buy the book. Proceeds from the book do go to help the nonprofit Forever Homes for Foster Kids. So people can learn about the foster care system, they can learn about solutions, they can advocate with their politicians if they're that way and they're that type of person that they really want to go after it. More power to them. They can do it. It's there listed out for people with these ideas of what they can do and how they can help. And listen, it's $1. It's on Kindle. There's no reason for someone not to be able to give $1 and help and to have part of the proceeds go to a nonprofit and help a foster child be back with family and learn and advocate for these kids.
Wow. Richard, what is your nonprofit's website?
So it's Forever Homes for FOR fosterkids.org.
Okay. So if I got this right, because I'm going to put it up here on the screen so people can see. And if I spelled it right, how they do?
Oh yes. Oh, for foster Forever Homes for FOR foster kids.
Okay.
ORG.
No, okay. I can definitely. Oh, so sorry. I hit the wrong thing. I can definitely fix that. And so as we close today, Richard, what would be a parting message that you would have for a foster child and a foster parent?
Let me talk about the foster parents first. Ask for help. Understand that unfortunately some counties are really good at offering help, others aren't. But there are books out there that talk about being a foster parent, how to do better as a foster parent. Again, you can check our Facebook page. There are experts out there. Dr. John DeGarmo is amazing, and he has his own books, and he is a foster and adopted parent, so that can help you. And as far as foster kids, don't give up. Look for that mentor. Look for that teacher who really you connect with and talk to them and share and open yourself up. I know it's scary, and I'm saying that I have not been a foster kid, so I'm going to put that out there. But you got to take a chance. Try take a chance with one of these adults, someone you resonate with, and see if they can connect and you can find out what's your superpower and realize that you have more control. Ask more questions. Look for information. It's out there. Resources are out there, but you're going to have to look for it. Unfortunately, I wish I could say that we're going to do it for you. Unfortunately, sometimes adults just don't step up the way we should. So grab it, go for it. It's your life. And I would say try to get as much benefit as you can. Find out about programs. Ask your school about programs they should know, and then they can help you. So you may have to be your biggest advocate, but you can do it because you've done and you're going through so much. You can still do it though and make your life so much better and brighter.
Yes. Absolutely. Richard, thank you so much for being on our show today. Again, for those watching on our YouTube channel, Richard's nonprofit organization, Forever Homes for Foster Kids, that website is on the screen. It'll be in the description around the video and around the podcast. You want to get involved in some capacity, we can do something to help. One thing we have to be resolved is that doing nothing is not an option. And so, Richard, thank you so much for being a part of our show today. And if you'll just hang tight, I'll be right with you in just a moment while we wrap things up. Okay? Thanks so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor to have spent this time with Richard Villasana. I am so glad that he has been a part of our show today. It has been insightful. And what is so significant about this particular interview is that May is National Foster Care Awareness Month. And so this was right on time. And we need to get involved. You know, you may have an extra bedroom in your house. You could be using that to be a foster parent to some child in need. You may have multiple properties that you could use and or multiple bedrooms. There's something we all can do. Doing nothing is not an option. You know, while Richard was talking, I was even thinking about our Dear Future Me, the coaching program, which is specifically geared to improve college and career readiness for at-risk students. Did you know that being in the foster care system puts what's called an at risk indicator on their educational records? Being an immigrant puts an at risk indicator on their educational record, meaning that that student is at risk for high school dropout. And educators, we know that already. And so why not do something? And that's what our program, Dear Future Me, the coaching program is geared towards helping those students who are at risk for high school dropout from ages 15 to 21 be prepared for college and career. And so it's real important that we get involved. We can all do our part, whatever that is. Just remember anything that you do will have an impact, and we appreciate that. And so make sure that you get involved and that you check out Richard's website at www.foreverhomesforfosterkids.org. You want to get involved today. So until the next time, we ask that you just be blessed, be encouraged, and most of all, be empowered. We'll see you next time.